3 weeks ago, my wife and I were in Israel celebrating the high holidays with our children and grandchildren. On Thursday, October 5th, I drove down from Tel Aviv to Kibbutz Be'eri, where a memorial to the Anzac is located nearby. It is less than a kilometer from this memorial to the Gaza border and close to where one of my relatives was killed in 1949, not long after Israel's independence. This last visit to Be'eri will be imprinted in my memory forever. It was the last memory of my country as it was. Driving back home on Thursday afternoon along the boundary with Gaza, I passed the small kibbutzim on the way that are typical of southern Israel. Places that, under normal circumstances, most people in the world would never heard about. As I drove past these places, I could not know that in little more than a day's time, Israel would be at war. I could not know that two of my relatives would be among the victims on the next Shabbat morning. I could not know, nor could I ever imagine, the horrors that were in store for these places, which would change our people and our country forever. Our lives are currently divided into two time periods, the time preceding the 7th October and the time following that day. Israel is brimming with shock, pain and horror in the wake of the outrageous massacre perpetrated by Hamas on innocent civilians on the Shabbat morning, which was also a religious holiday. As I stand here, it is difficult for me to recount the shocking details of this terrorist onslaught, but we cannot look away. We must face the absolute evil to understand why Israel is determined to defeat this murder machine. Beginning at 6:30 on Saturday morning, over 1,500 terrorists broke into homes and gunned down whole families while they slept. They fired rocket-propelled grenades into bedrooms. Mothers hid their children in closets, desperately trying to keep their babies from crying. But Hamas spared neither women nor children. Using steel wire, they bound mother to daughter, grandmother to grandson, and burned them alive. Do not look away from this evil. You must know what happened. They decapitated babies with knife. They raped young girls. They cut open a pregnant woman's belly. They set fire to buildings, burning them to the ground while people were hiding inside. They attack young men and women celebrating at a music festival in a forest clearing. They hunted the fleeing revelers, shooting and killing them with inhuman cruelty. A few hundred young men and women were executed right there in the forest. Using unspeakable violence, they abducted entire families, including 6-month-old babies and terrified children whose parents had just been murdered in front of them. Some 1,400 Israelis were murdered in a brutal act of mass slaughter, minute by minute, over many hours. Were the murderers ashamed of their actions? Absolutely not. They enthusiastically documented the atrocities and broadcast them live. And during the mass slaughter, 222 people were violently taken from their homes to Hamas dens of darkness as hostages, including the elderly, people in their 80s, and small suckling babies seeking their mothers. There are those who describe these actions as animal behavior. This is incorrect. Animals do not behave in this manner. People who cold-bloodedly tortured entire families to death are not animals. They are depraved monsters. The horrific acts of October 7th awakened feelings of helplessness and fear in the collective memory of Jews, emotions that evoke the trauma of the Holocaust. In the consciousness of the Jewish people, the names of places such as Be'eri, Kfar Aza, and Re'im will be forever tainted with the same horrors as Treblinka, Sobibor, Auschwitz-Birkenau. The State of Israel was established to serve as home for the Jewish people, to ensure that Jews are never led to their death simply because they are Jews. Hence, the terrible shock now prevailing in Israel. Nobody smiles. There is only profound misery, sadness, and trauma. But there is also a strong feeling of togetherness and a deep inner conviction that we must fight against this organization of terror and defeat it, to eradicate the threat of annihilation hanging over our children. We did not start this war, nor did we seek it, but it is a war that we are determined to win. We are fighting for our home, for our right to live.